Today we are going to make a Thanksgiving turkey using a coloring page and non-destructive editing in Photoshop. So if you're working in person, you'll go to the Bradley PAV Thanksgiving Turkey folder. It's located inside your iDrive. Double click on that folder and you're going to open up the Turkey PSD page. This will be your starter file. You're also going to need to open some of the pattern images. They're also in the Thanksgiving Turkey folder, or if you're a remote learner, they will be in a Google folder that I will share with you guys. And if you want to see what the patterns look like, you can come over here, choose large icons, and that'll show you the patterns that are available. I would suggest for the first part of this assignment, opening up maybe the first 5 or 7 images, and we'll just start with one for right now. So we're going to open that up. Oh, if it's giving us a message, let's see what we need to do. Let's go to open. It's a PNG fold. So there we go. So you're going to open up several of these patterns that we're going to use for the project. I'm just going to open up maybe 3 of them right now so you guys can get an idea of what we are doing. Okay, so what we're going to do to get started on this lesson is create patterns using the images that we have provided. So the first thing I want to do is I want to select this entire canvas area of my pattern, so I Control A, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my Edit menu, Edit, and I'm going to come down to Define Pattern. Now if you're working in Photopea, you're going to go to Edit, Define New Pattern, or Define New, and then Pattern. So it's basically the same thing in either program. So we're going to do that, and when it pops up, it'll show you a preview of the pattern, and you can name it whatever name is relevant to you, or you can just leave it with whatever it comes up as. We're going to select OK. Now once I've got that pattern created, I'm going to close out of that document, and I'm going to repeat the step again. Control A, Edit, Define Pattern, and then I'm going to hit OK. Again, we're going to do this one more time. I'm going to go to Edit, Define Pattern, and now I've defined 3 different patterns to use in my document. You're going to end up providing or getting a pattern for every single one of the leaves in the turkey's feathers, and so obviously it's going to be more than 5 patterns that you need. So we open our turkey, and if your image is locked, it should not be, but if it's locked, we're going to unlock that image. And so now what we want to do is we want to get the magic wand, and I'm going to select the background layer. Now when I select the background or the outer area of the turkey, I want to make sure that contiguous is turned on. That way it doesn't select any of the white inside the turkey. And I'm going to press delete on my keyboard so that I remove the background from the image. Now, if you're working in Photoshop, we are going to get a new layer, and we're going to call it background. And, whoops, looks like I misspelled it. Okay, so we're going to call it background, and we are going to place it below the turkey layer. If you are in Photopea, you can skip this step. Now, here's what we're going to do. We are going to place this pattern as a new layer. So if you're in Photoshop, you're going to go to File, and you're going to choose Place. And I prefer that you do Place Embedded. So we click that. And then up here in this top area, you can choose a different pattern to make your background image. So I'm going to do this one right here. So I click Place, and it's going to put it on the background layer that you created a while ago. Now Photopea users, you guys will go to File and then choose Open in Place, and it will actually create a new background layer for you, and then you'll just move the layer below the turkey. So I noticed that my pattern isn't big enough for the whole canvas, so I'm going to stretch that out, and then I press the check mark to commit that change, and now my background is a smart object, and it should be below the turkey. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to go and I'm going to click on the turkey layer, And I want to use my magic wand again. Again, this time I want to make sure that contiguous is turned on. And when I click on one of my turkey feathers, you'll notice it selects just that one feather because contiguous is turned on. So to do this non-destructively, we're going to use some fill layers. And to create a fill layer, we're going to go down here to the bottom of the layers panel, and the icon looks the same in Photopea as it does in Photoshop. It's the little circle for the new adjustment layer. It's half black, half white. We're going to click on that. If you're in Photopea, the option you're going to look for is pattern fill. If you're in Photoshop, it's going to be just simply patterns. Should be the third one from the top on either software. So we're going to click on pattern. And now if I scroll down in my pattern selections, I'm going to see the patterns that I just created and defined at the beginning of the lesson. So I'm going to click on this pattern right here. So I select the pattern, but you'll notice that it only looks red inside that feather. So what we have to do is we have to change the scale all the way down to 1. This is going to work in Photopea and Photoshop the exact same way. So we choose 1 for our scale option, and then we're going to press OK. I'm going to deselect, and now I'm going to go back to my turkey layer, and I am going to add a new pattern for a new feather. So again, I'm on this feather. I'm going to go down and choose my adjustment layer and choose pattern. If I'm in Photopea, it's pattern fill. I click here, and let's try a different pattern. Okay, you'll notice that when I did that, I hit OK too soon, and I forgot to scale. If you do that, all you have to do is double click on the pattern thumbnail, and it will allow you to go back in and edit the scale of that pattern. So I'm going to press OK. And now that you got the hang of what you're doing, you'll probably want to go in and open up more patterns and define more patterns, because you're going to want to do a different pattern for each one of these feathers. That is part of the grade. So if you choose not to do a different pattern, then you may be disappointed with your result. Now, the last thing I'm going to show you is I'm going to change my foreground color to brown, and I'm going to change the background color to a darker brown. So my foreground and background colors are both brown. Now I'm going to use the magic wand, and I'm going to select the turkey's body, and I think I want to use my shift key so I can add the head and the neck. So I've got these 3 things selected. I'm going to go down to my adjustment layer, and this time, instead of choosing pattern, I want to choose gradient. So I'm going to choose gradient, and when I do that, it's going to give me a gradient option. This one says that it's brown to clear. I want to choose the dark brown, light brown combination, so I click there, and I look at it, and I really think it would look better to have the lighter brown on top, so I'm going to choose reverse, and so it places that there. And now I have a gradient filled in. Okay, the next thing I'm going to look at is the little, the top of his head. And so I'm going to come up here, I'm going to click on this little part right here, and I just want to fill that in with a solid color. So I'm going to go down to my adjustment layers, I'm going to choose solid color, and I want it to be kind of a, let's make it kind of a dark red color. Maybe a dark magenta, and I fill that in, and it fills that. The only parts of your turkey that can have a solid color or a gradient are the main part of his body, his 2 side feathers, his beak, his feet, and then the top part of his body. All of his feathers need to have a pattern. Now, the last thing that you're going to do when you finish getting all the patterns in is you are going to add some text to this image. So we're going to click on the very top layer. We're going to click on our type tool. I'm going to choose center alignment. It makes it a little bit easier to work with. And I'm going to click in the center, and I'm going to type Happy Thanksgiving. Now, when I do that, I notice it's really, really hard to read with the font that I chose. So I may want to choose a thicker font. You can choose whichever font you want to do. Please don't spend a lot of time, excuse me, please don't spend a lot of time looking for the perfect font. And I think I'm going to change the color of it to an orange just to see if it stands out a little bit better. And then I'm going to, let's see, I don't like Let's try this. And so then the next thing I want to do is I want to make this arc over the turkey. So I'm going to click on my warp tool. When you're in Photopea, the warp button will actually say the word warp up here. And I'm going to choose arc as my style. And I'm going to leave it with a little bit of a bend, but I can bring it out just a little bit. And so now I'm going to click on my text with my move tool, and I'm going to drop it down into the canvas. Now the last thing you'll notice is on this text is really, really difficult to read all of the letters because it's on a pattern. So we want to apply a layer style to it. The layer style that I would suggest is probably a drop shadow because it stands off the page a little bit more. And these are the settings that I have used to make my drop shadows stand out. So the distance was 4, the spread is 23, the size is 3. And you can look, I've got normal for my blend mode, black, opacity 77, angle was 30. Those are just settings that I created. You don't have to stick with those. After we do that type tool, we're going to use the same font, and I'm going to come over into the lower right corner. Whoops, let's undo that real quick. And so I'm going to come down here and I'm going to click, and I'm going to type my name. So you guys will type your name, and then we're going to move it into the lower right corner. We're going to, I want to use the same layer style that I did for Happy Thanksgiving. So if I hold down my Alt key and I hover over the FX or the EFF, if you're in Photopea, I can slide it up. And so now my layer style will also be on this part. So as we finish this lesson, you're going to save it as your name and then the word turkey as a PSD file. Save it again as your name, turkey, PNG file. You're going to upload your image into Google Classroom. Make sure that you use different patterns for each feather. That's a big portion of the grade, and it's really important.